Hello lovelies, welcome back. I'm Shibid. I'm really sorry it's been such a long time since my last video. I seem to have had so much to organise and it's all come at once, as it does. But today I am excited to show you this new concept journal. I'm calling it the Beekeeper's Journal, and for me this has come at a very timely time. A timely time. We're just approaching the end of February here in Cumbria, and this is probably the worst time of year for me. I don't do so well over January and February, and I know that most people feel similarly. The shortened daylight hours and such, it's not a good time for a lot of us. So I felt like I needed some yellow, and the Beekeeper's Journal is one that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I thought this would be a really nice time to bring it on and welcome the springtime, as the spring is showing little peeps here and there. Little bulbs and things are coming up already, so this is a nice welcome, I think, to the springtime. So the cover is, as you can see, it's fabric. It has a nice quote on the front from Geoffrey Whitney, maybe, and there's a little bee embroidery with a lovely little raised body. It makes you want to keep stroking him. And the boards are done a little bit unusually, like so, wrapped around, using quite a thin piece of flexible card for the cover, for the spine I mean, and you might be able to see I've done some scoring here for texture, just using the scoring board, and a lovely piece of eco-dyed fabric here. So the front cover is hand dyed with fabric dye, and this is eco-dyed, and these yellows are extracted naturally from the plant. It might not have been actually this plant, but a plant that was beside it. I can't quite remember now, but I thought the colours went so well, and it's a really pretty sort of botanical theme. So that's that. The back cover is plain, and one thing to say is that this journal could have gone one of two ways. Could have been a bee journal or a beekeeper's journal, and I decided on this one because I wanted it to be more functional, not too ditzy and frilly, but I think one day I will probably venture into a bee journal as well, and it would be a bit more sort of cutesy, that side. But for now, this is what we're doing. Let's see. So I haven't done many charms. I've only done 2 charms because I didn't want it too frivolous. So this is belonging to a beekeeper, and she uses it for her work and for her notes. So there's a little honey pot, and of course a bee. Like that. Okay. So the inside. I've used this gold end papers from Paper Tree Nook again, beautiful Italian papers. Here is a quote. And some of the quotes are a bit long, so I'll just hold it for a second, and if you want to read them you can pause the video, and if you don't, we'll carry on together. Now, if you're not keen on yellow, you may want to come back in a week or two, because it is very yellow. You'll notice lots of plant transfers and inked and stenciled papers. So I haven't added too many embellishments this time, because I wanted it to be more functional and lots of space for writing and taking notes, but just concentrated on, like I said, making your writing areas more interesting. And I've just used this idea of the little hexagons so that you can use each little piece as a little journaling space. I thought it was quite a cute idea. Lots of prints, lots of honeycombs. Here I've just done some notes that I've just taken from a website online of the notes and records that they keep pertaining to the different hives. So lots of very unique papers. These are not printed, they're all inked and stenciled and transferred for each journal. There's a little bee on the apple blossoms up here on this lovely painting. And another thing you might notice, let me just see if I can close up. I've used an embossing folder for, there we are, for doing a lot of the edges. So, I meant to show you the folder. It's like a standard sized embossing folder. But rather than put it through the whole machine, I've used a rolling pin and kind of pressed really hard on the end of the rolling pin if you want to do this. And the idea is, normally the embossing folder would be so big, but of course with most of the machines they don't fit the whole page, so you're going to get borders and weird lines and creases in your work. So this idea was to avoid doing that, so you can get the embossing anywhere you like really on the page. It does take a bit of effort because you really have to press hard. But I think the result is worth it. You get lovely texture on your pages. I've done some transfers from nature books and some honeycomb stenciling there. There's a pocket, and I've chosen Cider with Rosie. Here is a window with tracing paper and some pressed corn marigolds. Some lovely embossed textures. And the other thing is that I have used very thick paper, lovely quality drawing paper for all the pages, except scrapbook papers, of course. I felt I wanted it to have a more natural quality to it. A little honey remedy jotted down here. So what I did was used a flattening technique again after I've wet and dyed the papers, so that you'll see the pages are lovely and flat. What happens when you heat treat wet paper is, of course, we know it goes crinkly, so you can see on this thinner paper, and you know what tea dyed paper looks like, of course. But with thick paper, what tends to happen is it goes a bit hard and crunchy, which is a little bit unpleasant. So I didn't heat treat it, just press it to flatten it. A little vintage postage stamp, some handmade paper, and I think that this effect is much nicer. And the nice Beekeeper's painting. Let me see if I can show you a page where it's a bit clearer, maybe a lighter one. See if I can show you here. The pages, the edges are just deckled slightly on the edges along here. So oh, that's better focus. And again, the idea is to give a more natural feel to the papers. And actually what it reminds me of is little, well, I want to say wasps, but I don't think many of us like wasps and don't like the thought of them in our books. But perhaps little carpenter bees, that would be more appropriate, have been chewing and nibbling on the edges. And so you get this little tiny serrated edge. Carpenter bees are actually really cool. I didn't know about them until I researched this book. I've left the hexagons on this page I've sewn round and just left the frames there for more journaling. And this is a pocket with tracing paper. I like a kind of a double-sided so you can see through. And another painting. What was I talking about? Carpenter bees. Oh, and this page also. I'll have to come back to carpenter bees in a minute. So I've left kind of ripped edges for a collaged space here, which is a bit like a wasp's nest as well, I thought. To torn paper. So carpenter bees, when they burrow through the wood, the excess material and the chips that they produce as they are burrowing, they save them. They actually save them for later, and then they use them later on to cover up the holes in the cells, which I thought was so amazing. How clever of the little bee. This is a lovely little graphic from the old design shop. That's another pause to read. There's some gold embossing, little bee. That's a pocket. There are lots and lots of pages. I've forgotten to count again how much. It's a nice bookmark here. I've made a monkey fist bookmark. Another pocket. I hope that you can see all this texture because it looks really cool in real life. There's a little bit about bees and a bee skep from the Edwardian Lady's Diary, more gold embossing. Here's another quote. And this envelope you've probably seen on my Instagram. I thought I'd use it here because of the lovely gold colours. Gold embossing on some of these honeycombs too. And more gold embossing, and this lovely idea is from Dolly at Gypsy Rose Papery, and she's been gold embossing over tracing paper and making really lovely designs with that, so that's what that's from. Thank you, Dolly. It's a lovely little vintage book page. Has some bee talk on here, and done an embroidery of hope you can see some little yellow flowers. Where are we? There we are. Little flower meadow. And again, this Midsummer Night's Dream quote was just perfect for a little bumblebee. So that's the other side of the vintage book. Just cut some honeycomb edges around that stencil. Here's another Edwardian lady with the daisy poem. Can't have bees without daisies, of course. And there's that quote. Also Midsummer Night's Dream. And that's the end. Just have a few little bits here in the back. So there's a little file folder. These are her honey labels that she has just tucked in here quickly for work, with some more notes, hive records, and there's 2 blank index cards, and a little file folder here. So this is a real specimen, and this has nice protection because it's in a folder, so I've just left it loose. But one thing to remember if you are doing it is that whatever it meets on that side, make sure that it has a nice smooth surface. So I've just made a little simple tag with sewing lines and a really pretty little vintage stamp. Oh, look at that. It says pretty little. I must have just read that without realising. That's funny. Okay, so that's that. So, tuck those in. That's the bee journal. That will go for sale on my new website, guys, very soon. I'm working on it right now, and if I can work out actually how the shop works, I will post the book later today, or hopefully in the next couple of days if not. And I will mark the YouTube video sold so that you're not messing about looking for stuff that's not there. Okay, so that's that. Also, after this video, I'm just about to finish this, but after this video I have another exciting thing to show you, which is a graphic, what are they called, like a digital kit. that I've designed, and although this book I had finished a couple of weeks ago, and it was only after that I have done the digital kit. So the digital kit is not used in the book, except for a couple of the loose journaling cards which I added later on, and so it is a bit different, and there's quite a lot of it. So what I'm going to do is split it into 2 groups so that there's a full price, but if you don't want to spend so much, which is understandable, you have the option just to buy half. And what I've tried to do is divide the pages and writing areas and journaling cards equally into the 2 groups, so that you know, if you buy one or the other, then you have a little bit of everything. So I'll be very excited to show that to you right after this video, and thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.